For over 20 years, Grand Theft Auto has been filling its cities with fake restaurants, greasy burgers, and suspiciously radioactive chicken. But here's the weird part. Almost none of them were actually original. Hidden inside GTA's world are parodies of real fast food chains, real scandals, real advertising campaigns, and in some cases, real lawsuits. And once you see the inspirations behind places like Cluckin Bell, Burger Shot, and Up and Atom, you realize Rockstar wasn't just making jokes, they were roasting the entire fast food industry. And with GTA 6 bringing the series back into the spotlight, fans are already wondering which of these iconic restaurants might be returning next. Long before GTA became one of the biggest entertainment franchises on Earth, Rockstar Games realized something important. Open world cities feel fake without places to eat. Think about it. Real cities are absolutely covered in fast food chains. Giant glowing burger signs, greasy pizza spots open at 2 a.m., chicken restaurants with mascots that look slightly terrifying. So when Rockstar began building the world of Grand Theft Auto in the late 90s and early 2000s, they didn't just create roads, cars, and pedestrians. They created an entire fake food industry. And almost immediately, players started noticing something suspicious. These restaurants looked really familiar. Burger Shot had the colors and giant burger branding of McDonald's and Burger King. Cluckin Bell looked like KFC if it had been designed during a caffeine overdose. Pizza Stack and Well-Stacked Pizza clearly borrowed from Pizza Hut and other American chain restaurants. And by the time GTA San Andreas released in 2004, Rockstar had fully embraced the parody. Commercials blasted through the in-game radio stations promoting horrifyingly unhealthy menu items. Billboards advertised burgers the size of steering wheels. Mascots screamed at customers like they were cult leaders instead of restaurant spokespeople. But underneath the jokes was something much smarter. Rockstar wasn't just copying restaurants for realism, they were satirizing American consumer culture itself, especially the explosion of fast food in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. During that era, fast food companies were everywhere. McDonald's became one of the most recognizable brands on Earth. Taco Bell was turning fast food into pop culture. KFC mascots were burned into people's memories through non-stop commercials. And giant corporations competed to make food bigger, cheaper, saltier, and more addictive than ever before, which made them the perfect target for Rockstar's humor. Instead of directly using real companies, which would have triggered approximately 17 million lawsuits, Rockstar created exaggerated versions that somehow felt even more American than the originals. And honestly, some of them became just as iconic as the real restaurants they were parodying. But out of every fake chain in GTA history, one restaurant stood above all others. A place so ridiculous, so aggressive, and so unforgettable that it basically became the face of GTA food culture itself, Cluckin Bell. By the time players discovered Cluckin Bell, they already understood the joke immediately, even if Rockstar never officially said it. The giant chicken mascot, the red and yellow branding, the deep-fried menu, the aggressively cheerful advertising. It was obviously inspired by KFC and Taco Bell, with Rockstar turning both of them into one horrifying fast food mutant. And somehow, they made it feel even more unhealthy than real fast food already was, which is honestly impressive. Cluckin Bell first appeared in GTA San Andreas in 2004, during an era where fast food advertising was completely unavoidable in America. Companies weren't just selling food anymore, they were selling personalities. Mascots became celebrities. Commercials became louder, faster, and more ridiculous every year. And Rockstar took one look at it all and basically said, what if we made this 10 times more insane? In GTA, Cluckin Bell commercials sound less like advertisements and more like hostage situations. The mascot screams at customers. The food descriptions sound radioactive. And every ad feels like it was written by someone surviving entirely on energy drinks and bad decisions. One commercial proudly advertises chicken with genetically modified brains. Another promotes a meal called the Cluckin' Huge Meal that sounds physically dangerous to consume, which was Rockstar directly parodying real fast food marketing trends from the early 2000s. At the time, restaurants were obsessed with making food bigger. Bigger burgers, bigger fries, bigger drinks, bigger portions. Fast food became less about eating and more about excess. And GTA exaggerated that culture until it became grotesque. But the funniest part, Cluckin Bell actually became one of the most memorable brands in the entire GTA franchise. Players quote the commercials to this day. People buy real-life Cluckin Bell merchandise. Rockstar even created the restaurant in multiple games across different decades of the series because fans loved it so much. which creates this weird situation where a fake parody restaurant becomes almost as recognizable as the companies it was mocking. Meanwhile, GTA's burger restaurants were taking shots at an entirely different part of American fast food culture: Burger Shot. If Cluckin Bell represented GTA's version of fried chicken chaos, Burger Shot was Rockstar's attack on America's burger industry, and they were not subtle about it. Burger Shot first appeared in GTA Vice City, but it became much more recognizable in San Andreas and GTA 4, where Rockstar turned it into one of the defining brands of the series. At first glance, it looks like a mashup of McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's, and basically every major American burger chain rolled into one. The bright colors, the oversized menu boards, the aggressively fake enthusiasm. Even the name Burger Shot sounds like the kind of focus-grouped fast food branding a corporation would spend $6 million inventing. But Rockstar's real target wasn't just burgers themselves. It was America's obsession with fast food becoming larger, louder, and more excessive every single year. During the late 90s and early 2000s, fast food chains were competing in what can only be described as a cholesterol arms race. Triple burgers became normal. Supersized meals exploded in popularity. Restaurants kept advertising meals with enough calories to legally qualify as construction materials, and GTA mirrored all of it. Burger Shot ads in the games constantly push ridiculous menu items packed with grease, salt, and meat stacked so high they barely resemble food anymore. One of their slogans literally says, "Taste the sadness," which might be the most honest fast food slogan ever created. Rockstar even designed Burger Shot employees to look exhausted and emotionally defeated, which honestly makes the parody feel way too accurate. And then there's the mascot, a giant smiling burger character that looks deeply unsettling if you stare at it for more than 3 seconds, which was completely intentional. Rockstar loved turning real advertising techniques into nightmare fuel. The mascots in GTA are always just slightly too loud, slightly too creepy, and slightly too desperate to sell you something. Almost like Rockstar was trying to say modern advertising had already become parody on its own. And weirdly enough, they may have had a point. Around the same time GTA was mocking fast food culture, documentaries like Super Size Me were becoming massive hits in real life. Public conversations about obesity, unhealthy food, and corporate marketing were everywhere. So while Burger Shot looked ridiculous on the surface, it was also reflecting real criticism that people were already starting to have about the fast food industry itself. And Rockstar didn't stop with burgers and fried chicken. Eventually, the GTA universe expanded into pizza chains, coffee shops, diners, taco restaurants, and even knockoff organic food brands pretending to be healthy while still serving absolute garbage. By the mid-2000s, GTA's fake food industry had become weirdly believable. Not realistic exactly, but believable in the same way real advertising feels believable. Loud, corporate, slightly manipulative, and absolutely everywhere. Rockstar understood that real cities aren't dominated by just one or two chains. They're overloaded with brands competing for attention every second. So with every new GTA game, the number of fake restaurants kept growing, and some of the inspirations became extremely obvious. Well-Stacked Pizza and Pizza Stack were clear parodies of chains like Pizza Hut, Domino's, and Little Caesars. The stores used giant signs, cheap combo deals, and exaggerated branding that looked almost identical to real pizza advertising from the early 2000s. In GTA 4 especially, the restaurants looked intentionally cheap and corporate, like places designed less for quality and more for pumping out food at maximum speed. Then there was Bean Machine, which was Rockstar taking direct aim at Starbucks and modern coffee culture. By the 2000s, Starbucks had become unavoidable in major cities. Suddenly, every neighborhood had expensive coffee shops filled with laptops, jazz music, and people ordering drinks with names longer than CVS receipts. Rockstar immediately turned that into satire. Bean Machine commercials mocked overpriced coffee, fake sophistication, and the idea that caffeine somehow became a personality trait. The company's slogan literally encourages customers to become completely dependent on coffee, which honestly isn't far from reality. Then GTA 5 introduced even more parody brands like Up and Atom Burger, one of the funniest fake names Rockstar has ever created. It was obviously inspired by California's In-N-Out Burger, right down to the color scheme, retro aesthetic, and West Coast fast food vibe. Except Rockstar added their usual layer of chaos by turning the name into a nuclear joke. Up and Atom, like atomic radiation, which perfectly fits GTA's style of humor. Take a normal American brand, then make it feel slightly dangerous. And honestly, that became Rockstar's secret formula for almost every restaurant in the series. The food always looks familiar enough to recognize instantly, but every detail is pushed just far enough into absurdity to remind you this world is supposed to be a satire of real life. Even the advertisements follow the same pattern. Real commercials try to make fast food look comforting and happy. GTA commercials make the food look chemically engineered by corporations that absolutely do not care whether you survive the experience, which is exactly why players remember them. The restaurants in GTA aren't just background scenery. They're part of the comedy, part of the world building, and in some cases, part of the social commentary. But there's one reason these fake brands become so iconic when similar parody games completely failed to pull it off. Rockstar understood something most developers didn't. Plenty of games have tried creating parody brands before. Fake soda companies, fake burger chains, fake stores with slightly altered logos. But most of them feel forgettable almost immediately. GTA was different. Somehow, Rockstar created fake restaurants that people remember decades later. And the reason comes down to one thing. They didn't design these brands like background props. They designed them like real corporations. Every restaurant had its own identity, its own advertising style, its own slogans, its own mascots, its own personality. Burger Shot feels different from Cluckin Bell. Bean Machine feels different from Up and Atom. Even the radio commercials sound like they were made by entirely different marketing teams. Rockstar put an absurd amount of effort into details most players only hear for a few seconds while driving stolen cars at 120 miles an hour. And that attention to detail made the world feel real, weirdly real. Players started recognizing brands the same way people recognize real businesses in actual cities. You knew where Burger Shot was. You remembered hearing Cluckin Bell ads on the radio. You instantly recognized Bean Machine signs while driving through Liberty City or Los Santos. Over time, the fake companies became part of GTA's identity itself. Some fans even became more emotionally attached to GTA restaurants than real ones, which is honestly a terrifying sentence to say out loud. And Rockstar clearly realized how successful these brands had become. By GTA 5, many parody restaurants had evolved almost like real-world franchises. Logos changed, buildings became more modern, advertising styles shifted with the times, just like actual fast food corporations adapting to new generations. Even the satire evolved. Earlier GTA games mostly mocked fast food being greasy and unhealthy. Later games started mocking corporate healthy branding too. Suddenly, restaurants weren't just selling burgers anymore. They were pretending to care about sustainability, organic ingredients, and wellness trends while still serving complete nonsense, which mirrored exactly what real companies were doing in real life. And that's what made Rockstar's world building so sharp. GTA doesn't invent entirely fake problems. It exaggerates real ones until they become impossible not to notice. The restaurants feel funny because they're recognizable. The commercials feel ridiculous because they sound almost believable. And underneath all the jokes, explosions, and chaos, Rockstar was quietly building one of the smartest satires in gaming history, which becomes even more obvious once you realize the food wasn't the only thing they were parodying. They were parodying us too. On the surface, GTA's restaurants are just funny background jokes. Giant burgers, screaming mascots, suspicious chicken meat. But underneath all the comedy, Rockstar was aiming at something much bigger. Consumer culture itself, especially American consumer culture in the late 90s and early 2000s. This was the era of non-stop advertising. Corporations weren't competing quietly anymore. Every brand wanted to be louder, bigger, and more impossible to ignore than the last. Commercials became chaotic. Mascots became aggressive. Companies started marketing lifestyles instead of products. And fast food chains were right in the middle of it. Rockstar took all of that energy and exaggerated it until it became uncomfortable, which is honestly the entire identity of GTA as a franchise. Almost every fake company in the series feels like a slightly distorted version of something that already exists in real life. Ammunition mocks American gun culture. Life Invader mocks social media companies like Facebook. Fame or Shame parodies reality television. And the restaurants mock the endless cycle of advertising unhealthy products while pretending they improved your life. GTA's world is basically a giant cartoon version of modern society, except the scary part is how often the parody ends up feeling accurate. Some GTA commercials honestly don't sound that different from real ads anymore, especially today. Fast food companies now openly compete using bizarre social media marketing campaigns, meme accounts, fake internet personalities, and intentionally unhinged advertising, which feels extremely close to something Rockstar would have written as a joke 15 years ago. And that's part of why GTA's satire has aged so well. The games exaggerated real trends, but reality eventually started catching up to the parody. In some cases, reality actually became weirder. That's why players still remember these fake restaurants decades later. They weren't random jokes thrown into the background. They reflected real companies, real advertising tactics, and real cultural trends people recognized instantly. And somehow, Rockstar managed to make all of it hilarious without ever naming the real brands directly, which was probably a very smart legal decision. Although, honestly, everyone knew exactly who they were talking about anyway. And after more than 20 years of GTA games, something really strange ended up happening. The fake restaurants stopped feeling fake at all. Here's the weirdest part of all this. Some GTA restaurants became so popular, fans wanted them to exist in real life, and eventually, Rockstar started leaning into it. Over the years, players recreated Cluckin Bell logos on custom clothing. Fans built real-life burger shot concepts online. Modders added functioning GTA restaurants into other games. People even created recipes based on fake GTA menu items, which is absolutely insane when you remember these brands originally existed to mock fast food culture. Somehow, the satire became marketable. Then, things got even stranger with GTA 5. Rockstar's fake companies had become so recognizable by that point that players could identify them instantly from a single logo or color scheme. You didn't need the name written out anymore. One Cluckin Bell sign in the distance and players immediately understood the joke. That's when the parody brands stopped feeling like background comedy and started feeling like actual parts of gaming culture. In some ways, Cluckin Bell became just as iconic as real fast food mascots, which is probably the most accidental marketing success imaginable. And honestly, Rockstar may have realized they'd created something bigger than a joke. In recent years, the company has used GTA restaurant branding in official merchandise, promotional events, and collectibles. There have even been real-world pop-up versions of fictional GTA restaurants during marketing campaigns, meaning the fake businesses designed to parody corporations slowly turned into corporations themselves, which feels like the most GTA outcome possible. And somehow, the brands still work because the writing behind them was always weirdly believable. Every fake company in GTA feels like it existed long before the player arrived. The ads imply decades of terrible business decisions. The mascots feel over-marketed and exhausted. The restaurants feel mass-produced and soulless in exactly the same way real corporate chains often do. Rockstar didn't just parody restaurants visually, they understood the psychology of advertising itself, the way companies try to sound relatable, the way mascots are engineered to stay in your memory, the way corporations pretend to care about customers while aggressively selling them things they absolutely do not need. And by exaggerating all of that just slightly, Rockstar created one of the most believable fictional worlds in gaming, which is ironic considering GTA is also a game where people survive rocket launchers and drive motorcycles off skyscrapers. But after all these years, there's one reason players still remember Burger Shot, Cluckin Bell, and Bean Machine more than most fake brands in gaming history. Rockstar understood something very simple. Satire works best when it's close enough to reality to make people uncomfortable. Grand Theft Auto has always been famous for the chaos. The police chases, the explosions, the crime, but hidden underneath all of that was something Rockstar became unbelievably good at: observation. GTA's restaurants worked because they weren't random jokes. They were exaggerated reflections of real companies, real trends, and real advertising culture people already recognized. Cluckin Bell took America's fast food obsession and turned it into chemical warfare. Burger Shot transformed corporate burger marketing into pure existential sadness. Bean Machine mocked the rise of overpriced coffee culture before it completely took over real cities. And Up and Atom proved Rockstar could turn even a simple burger chain into a joke about radiation poisoning. Somehow, every fake restaurant felt ridiculous and believable at the exact same time, which is probably why players still remember them decades later. Most games create fake brands that disappear from your memory the second you stop playing. GTA created fake companies that became a part of gaming culture itself. And honestly, that says a lot about how sharp Rockstar's satire really was. The company understood something most developers didn't. If you want a fictional world to feel real, you don't just build the cities, you build the corporations inside them. The annoying ads, the fake slogans, the mascots everyone secretly hates, the restaurants people keep going back to anyway. And after more than 20 years, GTA's fake food chains ended up accomplishing something completely unexpected. They became almost as recognizable as the real restaurants that inspired them, which is either brilliant satire or a sign that Rockstar understands advertising way better than any of us want to admit. And honestly, it's probably both. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe to Eat This Story for more deep dives into food lore, strange culinary history, and unexpected stories hiding behind the things we eat. And before you go, what GTA restaurant are you hoping returns in GTA 6? Let me know in the comments. And until next time, try not to eat anything from Cluckin Bell.